下哦。
这样自动好。
都准备好了。可以。
等我的透镜没有了。
Okay, welcome to this afternoon session. I'm the main principal juror. And first, welcome, and I hope everyone will have a good discussion and report this afternoon. First, I'd like to introduce myself and the jury. My name is Ivan Liu. I'm from National Jiaotong University, and
from National Taiwan University.
From National Taiwan University.
National Central University.
Okay, let me remind each team, please have a good discussion and try to make your explanation as clear as possible. So please, first, the opponent. The opponent challenged the reporter for the problem.
We would like to challenge problem number 2, aerosol.
Okay, problem 2. And would the representatives from each team please write your name on the blackboard?
先把它写下来，然后你在输入系统的时候是怎么就直接空着，就直接往上带进，带进吗？
Okay, reporter, please take the floor.
Okay. Hello, my dear tourism professor. I am from Team Temple Zhou, and today I am talking about the second topic, aerosol, and I'm reporter Gu Chengwei. Here's my outline. First, I will be introducing my topic, and also I will define some of the properties that are mentioned in our description. And then I will show you my observation, which I have several videos. And then I have my preliminary research. And from my research, I had my zero attempt. And then the last two one, my parameter investigation and my conclusion. Okay, here's the introduction. When water flows through a small aperture, an aerosol may be formed. And in this section, we have to investigate what parameter will determine if it is an aerosol or if it is a jet that will be formed. And we also have to investigate what the properties are. But before we start to do the experiment, we have to define what an aerosol is, because the major section is talking about aerosols. So I found the definition on Wikipedia, and here's the definition. An aerosol is defined as a suspension system of solid or liquid particles in the gas. An aerosol includes both the particles and the suspending gas, which is usually air. So in order to form an aerosol, it must meet two conditions. First, it should be a liquid or solid particle, and then there should be suspending gas. But now we have the definition of aerosol, but we are not able to determine whether an aerosol is formed or a jet is formed. So I've done another experiment. According to a Tyndall effect, when light passes through an aerosol, the light will scatter, and a bright patch will be formed. So by using this effect, I used a laser light to hit the water that's ejected from a water bottle. And from the picture on the right, you can see that light is scattered when it passes through an aerosol, and a bright patch can be discovered. And then when it is a jet, nothing will happen. Okay, so after my introduction, I have my observation. The picture on the left-hand part is a sprayer that can be found almost everywhere in our daily life. And that is a very simple structure, which is only composed by two parts. First, a nozzle and this structure, and a water bottle. And by fastening or loosening the lid on the nozzle, you can either produce a jet or an aerosol. And this is my three pictures, and this is my observation. First, this is a sphere without a lid. And every time you press it, you can inject a certain amount of water. And then when you put the lid on, or you loosen the lid, you can produce the jet. And when you fasten the lid and press it, you can produce an aerosol. Like the picture shown over there, there's an aerosol. Okay, so after my observation, I start my first research. And this is my preliminary research. To investigate how we can produce an aerosol, I try to simulate the sphere once again. But this time, I have to know what its interpressure is. So I do this experiment device. I connect the water bottle to an electric pump. And on the water bottle, I use a needle to punch a hole that has the exactly same diameter as the sphere has, which is 0.625 millimeters. And in order to know how its interpressure is, I also connect the manometer on it, so I can know what its pressure is. And I'm going to do this experiment and see if this time an aerosol is produced. And this is a very important part of the experiment, which is something I need to explain. This is the water bottle I use, and it is a PET material. So by using this bottle, I can adjust the interpressure to 10 psi to 60 psi. And this is how I punch a hole on it. I use the needle to punch a hole on the bottle. And you can see, this is the tip of the needle, and it has a cone shape. So by using this cone shape stuff, I can punch a hole from 0 to 0.86 millimeter. However, no matter how hard I try, my preliminary research failed. Under the same condition, which is the same aperture diameter and the same interpressure, I can only produce a jet, but not an aerosol. So by doing this research, it is clear that other than the diameter of the aperture and the interpressure, there must be other factors that will influence to produce an aerosol. So after my research, I finally have my theory attempt. After my research, I compared two devices, which is the sprayer and my own experiment device. And from these two, I can find that the sprayer has a nozzle and lid structure, which my experiment device don't have. So I predict that this is the reason why an aerosol will produce. And this is the nozzle of the sprayer. And the two pictures below, this is a sector diagram. And this gray and black thing is the nozzle, and the water will flow out from here. And the red thing is the lid. And the lid will cover the nozzle. So when the water flows out, it is going to pass through the aperture on the lid. And I think the reason why an aerosol is produced is because of the turbulent flow. When the water flows out from the nozzle, it is going to hit the lid, which is the blue circle part. And that meets the requirement to form a turbulent flow. So that will form a turbulent flow. A turbulent flow is a flow that do not have a certain pattern and do not have a certain flowing direction. So when the turbulent flow flows out from the aperture of the lid, the aperture is going to be formed. Okay, and I have to make sure that this because of the nozzle and lid structure that makes a difference. So I do my previous experiment once again, but this time, instead of just punching a hole on my water bottle, I attach the nozzle and lid structure on my water bottle. And still, under the same condition, the same aperture diameter and the same interpressure, this time an aerosol is produced. So I can prove that it is because of the nozzle and lid structure that will produce an aerosol. Okay, and this is my parameter investigation. This is the device I use in my parameter investigation. It is the water bottle that has a cylinder shape. And then on the bottom of the water bottle, I connect a nozzle and lid structure on it. So by using this device, I'm going to investigate what the parameters are. And my first parameter is the relationship between pressure and the angle of the aerosol. And this is the angle I'm going to measure. It's the C angle. Because the A angle is not easy to measure, so it could have a low accuracy. So I use a certain height to measure this angle C. And this is how I do the experiment. I adjust the interpressure of the water bottle to a certain value, and then I will release the water, and I will instantly measure its aerosol's angle. And the 5 pictures below is the aperture, is the aerosol under 5 different pressure conditions. It's 20 psi, 30 psi to 60 psi. And from this picture, we can see that the angle will increase instantly as the pressure increases. And I can say that these two have a positive correlation. And this is the diagram I drew. The y-axis is the angle, and the x-axis is the pressure, and its unit is psi. And from this, we can see that these two have a correlation, a positive correlation. And this is my second parameter. This is the relationship between the pressure and the aperture flowing velocity. And the left part, this is my equation. V is the aperture flowing velocity. And then F is the force provided by the water. And T is the terminal head passes. And M is the mass of the water. And then P is the pressure from the water. And A is the area of the aperture. And then R is the water flowing rate. K is the constant. And from my equation, I can get to a conclusion that V will have the linear equation to pressure square root. And in order to prove my theory, so I've done another experiment. And this is my experiment. The y-axis, it is the water flowing velocity squared, and its unit is cm squared divided by second squared. And then the x-axis is the pressure, and its unit is psi. And then from the chart, we can see that these two have a very good linear relation, and its r squared is very close to 1. So I can say that my experiment have a very high accuracy, and that also proves my theory on the previous page. So these two, they have a linear relation. And last but not least, here I get to my conclusion. And this is my first conclusion. A turbulent flow is a flow that do not have a certain pattern. So it is going to flow in all directions. And I believe that this is the reason why an aperture is formed in my experiment. And that also explains why the aperture is formed from a nozzle and structure, but not on my previous device, which is a device that only has a single aperture on my water bottle. And these are my parameters. An aerosol angle have a positive correlation to the pressure, and that I have proved from my experiment. You can see that these two have a positive correlation on the diagram too. And last, this is my last parameter. This is the velocity, the relationship between the aperture flowing velocity and then my pressure. And from the experiment, we can see that there is a perfect linear relation between these variables. And the flowing velocity square have a linear relation to the pressure. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you guys for listening.
Okay. Now please, opponents ask questions.
Good afternoon. First problem I would like to ask, please go to the observation page. That you use Tyndall effect. I would like to ask you, said that you use Tyndall effect if the water represents a Tyndall effect to define if it is aerosol, right?
Yeah, I use this to compare if it is an aerosol, if it is a jet, and this is the way I determine it.
Okay, can I ask a question? For this jet, we can observe that this part has a little bit spray out. Like this part, in the end of the jet, there's some spray outs. So would you define this as a jet or an aerosol?
I don't think there is an aerosol on this part because even from this picture, I don't think that it is like going on the wider side. Yeah.
So you only define aerosols while you use Tyndall effect is very obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. The next problem is I would like to ask you use needle to change the aperture, right?
Yeah, I use the needle to change the diameter of the aperture.
Can I ask how do you make sure that the needle makes the same aperture? While there's maybe some errors when you use a needle to touch the bottle from something else.
Also, this is a very complicated and very hard thing to do. So by this, I must do the experiment very slowly, and even though I have punched a hole on my water bottle, I still have to measure the diameter of the aperture to make sure that it matches my diameter of my sprayer. Yeah.
So for the same aperture that you think that is the same aperture, is the experiment repeatable? Well, it reacts the same. If you
Which experiment?
This experiment.
I only use this method to punch a hole on my water bottle. Yeah. So I think this is okay.
Okay, thank you. Our question is ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm the opponent of Team Miracle, and I would like to oppose problem number 2, aerosol. And first, a problem statement tells us that when water flows out, a small aperture, aerosol will come out. So, and I think what is very crucial is first, how do you define aerosol? And second, it's a small aerosol, small aperture, and the third point is determining parameters. And then this is a strategy of problem solving that I considered. First, we have to well define the aerosol by experimentally and theoretically. And second, we have to set up while we use small apertures and the reporter use some lids and how they control the other parameters. And the third, they have to test some determining parameters. And the opponents, the reporters, pros and cons first. First of all, pros, they have nice desktop, nice presentation, and they got a very great observation and great creativity that they solved the problem when only a very small aperture doesn't produce aerosol. But actually, their cons is they have less parameters, so they only discuss about the angle and the pressure. Actually, the pressure and the velocity is a similar thing, so they only discuss the angle and the velocity. And then they don't have any quantitative theory. And then their definition is actually a little bit vague while you use Tyndall effect. But you have to define Tyndall, and then you have to define Tyndall effect again. The discussion points. First of all, definition. I have to ask, how do you use Tyndall effect if this aerosol has a Tyndall effect? How do you know it's a Tyndall effect or just normal reflection? And I observed that they use their aerosols vertically, and so I would like to ask them if I place the equipment, how about horizontally? What will change? What will influence? And aerosol, according to the Wikipedia's definition, there is air and water mixed together. So I would like to also ask about this type of question, which well, it's influenced by some of the vectors. And for their experiment, they got a little bit poor experiment while they only got angle and velocity. And I would like to ask them if they said that it's linear, and I would like to ask them how to explain if it's linear. And for their theory, first of all, they said that they should use a lid to produce an aerosol. But actually, the problem in TYPT only described that they can use aerosol by only a small aperture. So I would like to ask them, in what kind of situation, because they said they failed, so I would like to ask them what kind of situation, these two, well, I would like to ask them to compare these two situations. And they said that they place a lid on the aerosol. I would like to ask them if they move the lid and they said their turbulence is occurred, then I would like to ask them if there is any evidence that proves any turbulence is occurred between the lid and the small aperture. And I think it's time for us to go to the discussion. First of all, I would like to ask the Tyndall effect. You said that an aerosol would present the aerosol would present a Tyndall effect while the jet wouldn't. And how do you say that if it's a Tyndall effect or just a normal reflection?
Well, these are the description exactly from the Wikipedia. So I think this definition is okay. And this is the phenomenon. There is going to be a white path, and that can be observed. So in this picture, you can clearly see that here is the path. This is the path, right? And also, it is scattered. Light is scattered. So I think this is okay to prove that this is an aerosol but not a jet.
So actually just recognize it by just naked eye.
Yeah, I think this is okay to observe it only by eye. Yeah, because that is the phenomenon. The phenomenon from the Tyndall effect. So I think this is fine.
What happens when little particles go through? There's an aerosol. Then the particles must be small enough to present a Tyndall effect, right?
Yeah.
So I can say these are particles, right? These are also particles.
Oh, for that,
Or
I
is
have
it
to find
continuous?
what an aerosol is. First, there should be a suspending gas.
So
Yes.
suspended gas.
So there's not a suspending gas in the jet. So this is the reason why Tyndall effect cannot be used on this, because there's not suspending gas. So light wouldn't be scattered.
So you have to have some air mass.
I mean, yes, the suspending gas, just like the previous page.
Okay, next one. I would like to ask. It seems like you always do your experiment in vertical ways. How about in horizontal ways? While in the previous preliminary experiments, you did just preliminary. I don't know, but in our daily life, we can use that kind of aerosol. I don't know what that's sprayer in horizontal ways, right?
Yeah.
And you did your experiment in vertical ways. So I would like to ask you if how to compare in vertical ways and horizontal ways. What kind of factors changes?
About these, I don't think that vertical ways or horizontal ways will matter. Because these two, they both form an aerosol. And the aerosol is a phenomenon we are going to observe in this fashion. So I think it is fine to do it in the only vertical side. Yeah.
So how about I put it like this? The aerosol, the jet is really like a fountain. Will it represent an aerosol?
No, it wouldn't.
Then how can you say that it doesn't matter if it's horizontal or vertical?
Because we are going to do aerosol in this experiment. So no matter if we put it in horizontal or in vertical, if that both for an aerosol, it is fine. And in my case, I only use the vertical to do my experiment. I think this is fine.
It did produce an aerosol, but is there any kind of parameters or properties that changes?
Well, that might be one parameter. In my case, I didn't do this parameter.
Okay, thank you. And also, actually, besides gravity, I think that vertical or horizontal will also influence the air mix that you just said, right? But a fountain and a flow flows down and flows up has a different reaction in air mix.
You mean what kind of reaction?
Phenomenon. When you just a normal fountain that flows from down and flows up, it reacts different, right?
Yeah, I would.
It would. And the air mix is different, right?
The air mix is different, but if an aerosol is produced, then this is fine. Yeah, it wouldn't matter the air mix.
Okay, and the next one. I would like to ask, please turn to page when the CITAS, the angles definition. Can you explain that again? Because A, B, C, D, E, you didn't say what these parameters.
Oh, in my case, I use angle C. And first, I'm going to define a certain height. And so I will going to use the angle from the border of the aperture and to the border of the aerosols. This is the border, and to the aperture. So this is my angle C.
If I change D, will C changes? If I change D,
Yeah, it would.
it would.
So this is why I control a D in my case. I control a certain D. Because I'm just going to compare the angle on the different pressure situation.
Okay, thank you. And next one is that you claim that you need a lid, the nozzle and a lid to produce an arrow. Yes. Can you please take me to the page, the lid?
Page.
Yeah, lid. Anyway, not this, not you got the diagram. Just a simple drawing, with a simple drawing of nozzles and
Oh, okay.
with a simple drawing of nozzles and yes, that's it. Over. Okay, thank you. Can I ask you that while it's a nozzle and it's a lid, right?
Yes.
And these are separated systems. So did you move the lid while you did experiments?
No, I didn't.
So you don't treat it as a parameter.
Yeah, I didn't treat it as a parameter.
So did you make sure that in every experiment the lid is staying in a relatively same place with the nozzle?
Oh, yeah, I think this is a very important part that I didn't mention in my presentation. So I have controlled the lid height to a certain value, and I didn't move the lid in all my experiment. Yeah.
So you can just control it.
Yes, I control it.
Okay. Then also another problem here is that you claim that turbulences occurs here.
Yes.
First problem, how will these turbulences affect outside water?
Oh, because from here to here, it is still turbulent flow. And as I have mentioned before, a turbulent flow is a flow that flows in all directions. And I believe that this is the reason why an aerosol is produced. Because when water flows out from this aperture, it is going in all directions, and that will produce an aerosol.
So you mean that the water goes here, but not very strict flow, it goes like this, but like a mass and turbulences and then go out. So it produces an aerosol?
Yeah.
Okay, then I would ask another problem is do you have any evidences that there is turbulence here?
Oh, I have said, a turbulent flow will form if it is disturbed by an obstacle. And I think this is the obstacle. And I also do experiment to prove that this is because of the turbulent flow, it will going to form an aerosol. And here's my another experiment. And okay, these two are definition of linear flow and turbulent flow. But I have mentioned this before, so I'm not going to talk about this. And as you can see, here is a cup, and I think I use this to model the lid. So this is the lid, and here is the nozzle. So you can see, I have colored the water inside the water bottle, and when the water flows out from the water bottle, it is going to hit an obstacle. And from the colored water, you can see it flows in all directions. And that means the definition of a turbulent flow. So I believe I can say that this is a turbulent flow.
So you treat these two, actually they're in different kinds of sizes, but you treat these two experiments as one. That you believe that when you did this large experiment, it produces a turbulent flow, then you believe in a small one, it also produces turbulent flow.
Yes, I'm just using this cup to simulate the relationship between a nozzle and a lid. So I believe that I can see this and the lid. So when it hits the lid or hits this cup, a turbulent flow will be produced.
So can I ask that? But while I didn't see aerosol here, right? You did black ink.
Means aerosol. Oh yeah, Because I am just trying to prove, and it is because I am just trying to prove that a turbulent flow will form when the water will hit an obstacle. Yeah, so there wouldn't be an aerosol be observed in this picture. You can see that there is a turbulent flow.
Okay. And it's my suggestions, but I suggested that in aerosol experiments we can change the lid and the nozzle into transparent. So yeah, transparent. And so you can see what happens inside and high frame rates video or something, so you can prove your experiments more. Yeah, that's my suggestion.
Okay.
And I would like to ask, because you claim that the theta, the angle that is the only parameter we discussed about.
It's actually the flowing rate.
The flow rate and the angle. And you claim that it is linear. How come it goes to linear? And do you have any kind of
I
explanation?
say the linear relation is the flowing velocity and then the vector. It's not only angle. Yeah, it's not the angle that has the linear relation. I only say that it is a positive correlation. Angle and pressure is only a positive correlation.
I mean
It's not
angle
a
and
linear.
velocity.
Oh well, but you say angle and pressure.
Okay,
Oh,
time's
sorry.
up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Please summarize.
Okay, we discussed about first with nozzle and without nozzle. With nozzle and lid, then the opponent claimed that they didn't remove the lid, and they have to use the lid to produce an aerosol, and they didn't change the lid, the position of the lid, but they said I also asked that in the lid, they claim that there are turbulences, and they did some large experiments to prove it by suggesting that the transparent would be there. And in Tyndall effect, we discussed about how aerosols are defined, and they use naked eye. And they defined they discovered that the angle and the velocity is linear, but they didn't tell us why. And this is about our remarks. Thank you.
Reviewer.
Hello everyone, I'm the reviewer of New York, and I want to ask you in one example that you want to your dependent variable is the velocity of the aerosol, right?
I think so, yes.
And can you show me
You mean the equation or the chart?
the experiment?
The experiment. This is the chart.
Okay, and another field, aerosol, and can you discuss that one?
Sure.
Something like that. And the velocity is where is the velocity is? Can you try to tell us?
So this is the aperture. This is the aperture.
This is the aerosol body, the like that, I guess. Is it?
Oh, the flowing velocity is the point from closest to the aperture.
So your velocity is.
Yes.
Could you tell me what the force that may affect the aerosol, or I mean the force?
Oh, yes. In my experiment, the force is formed because of the water pressure. I mean the interior pressure. Yeah. So when the force is bigger, the aperture flowing velocity and the angle of the aerosol will both increase. Is this what you're asking, or can you just say your question again? Here's my diagram. So you can think this as the water flow because the force is formed by the pressure. So this is the diagram. And then the other one is the angle.
The theory. Could you tell me the theory
this what you're asking?
Okay, time's up.
Thank you.
2 minutes preparation. Time is up. Review, please take the floor.
Everyone, reviewer, let's get started. The public statement is when the water flows through a small aperture, an aerosol may be formed. Investigate these parameters that determine whether an aerosol is formed rather than a jet, for example, and what are the properties of the aerosol. And the theory that what we want to say is nozzle and the structure is the biggest factor, and the setup, they connect the pump to plastic bottle and nozzle and the experiment pressure and go increase in pressure and yes, and the conclusion. I have to say, the reporter, your theory is very nice, and you try very hard to tell us that you the pressure and the velocity is very good, and but there's something wrong between you and the opponent by the theory. So and the independent variables to this, and the graphs and it's hard to understand. And of all the reports, the reporter, you have a very clearly phenomenon, and our suggestion is to less dependent, and the variable and dependent variable is to S2. Thank you.
Okay. There's a very important point that I have to say again in my experiment. The reason why an aperture is formed is because of the turbulent flow, and I have done several experiments to prove this. And then I would want to answer the questions from the opponent why I didn't do it as a fountain type. Because in my experiment, I am going to compress the pressure by an air. So if I turn a vertical way and there's a fountain, I cannot eject the water because the air will be on the top. So I can only eject air, not water. So this is why I didn't do a fountain, but instead I do a vertical and to a down. And I think one of your remarks is very good. That you tell us that we can use a nozzle at this structure that is, you can see through my nozzle or this structure. But because I didn't found this type of nozzle at this structure, so I just use one I can see through. And then I used a nozzle at this structure in my experiment, and I think you said that this is not what the introduction said. Because the introduction says that because aerosol be formed through an aperture, but actually there is an aperture on the lid. So that means the introduction. That means the description of the topic. Because even though I use a lid and nozzle structure, the water still ejects from the aperture on the lid. So I think this is okay for my experiment. Okay, and the other parameter is that the angle and the pressure, these two have a positive correlation, and the pressure and the water flow energy, these two have a linear relation. So this is my summary. Thank you, everyone.
Now, questions from the jury.
For a reporter, have you precisely studied the effect of the aperture size? I see your theory has an area A, capital A. So have you precisely studied the effect of aperture size?
Well, it is very hard to control the diameter of the aperture, so I didn't use this kind of parameter. Yeah, I just control the aperture size, the diameter to 0.625 millimeter. I didn't change the area of the aperture. Yeah.
So can you guess what kind of effect will?
Oh, I think when the area of the aperture becomes larger, the limitation to form an aerosol will be higher. It means it must have a higher pressure to form an aerosol when the diameter is bigger. Yeah. I think so.
Okay, my question is also for the reporter because the problem stated here is precise, a small aperture. There's nothing about the inside structure below the aperture, right? So
yes.
what makes you think that the lid is necessary, but there's some structure under the aperture is necessary?
Oh, this is a thing that I got from my preliminary research. Because in my preliminary research, I punch a hole on a water bottle and use the same condition as a sprayer, but I cannot form an aerosol. So I think that there must be other factors that will produce an aerosol.
Did you try smaller aperture size?
Yeah, I tried smaller aperture size, much smaller than the sprayer's diameter.
You measure the aperture size?
My smallest aperture size is 0.2 millimeter, and I think this is low enough. And this is the
You
smallest
think
aperture I
right?
can use.
That's because you think.
Uh,
There's nothing saying here. That's the how small the aperture should be.
Oh, that is because that is the smallest aperture I can found on
Okay.
NATO.
That's it.
More questions? Okay, if not, that's great. Please wait for a few minutes. grade for reporter. Eight, 6, 9, 8. Now the grades for the opponent. 8, 5, 9. Now the grade for the reviewer. 4, 5, 4, 6. Okay. We conclude this session and let's take 10 minutes break. ，Okay, please, with the challenger, the opponent challenge for reporter for problem. Tell them.
Number 7, love voice.
他们已经丢出问题了，要换下一个换。Okay, time's up.
We accept it.
So please write your names on the blackboard. Time's up. The reporter, please present.
Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm the reporter of Team Miracle, and today we would like to report problem number 7, loud voice. First, this is a problem statement. A simple corn-shaped or horn-shaped object can be used to optimize the transfer of a human voice. The remote listener investigated how the resulting acoustic output depends on the relevant parameters such as shape, size, and materials of the cone. First, we have to define what is a cone shape and horn shape. Here, we define a cone shape as a shape with circular base and smooth curved sides. And horn shape is a hollow curved object that is narrow at one side and wide at another. So this is cone shape. This line is linear, and this is horn shape. The function we use here is exponential. And then we have to define what is human voice. We find out that human voice is generally between 80 and 1000 Hz. So we'll discuss this phenomenon between these hertz. And this is our setup. Here is our cone or horn, and this is a speaker. And this is a microphone that records the sound, and we use audacity to analyze. This is our set outline. We set up and we have spatial distribution. And then we can start to explain the phenomenon, and we do some parameters. At last, conclusion. First, because human voice has multiple frequencies, such as 80 Hz to 1000 Hz, so we start to change the frequency of the sound. And we discovered that there isn't a very obvious trend between the hertz. This is the hertz, and this is how the sound, how big the sound is. And no matter what kind of horn or horn we use, for every frequency, the results remains actually the same. So at last, we decided to use 200 Hz. This is our setup. Here is our speaker. After it emits sound, it touches the cone. This is the length of the cone, and this is the angle of the cone. And this is a small radius of the cone which touches the speaker. And this is the large one, radius of the cone. And this d is the distance from the cone to a remote listener or a microphone. And this is our reality setup. First we elevated this cone because we wonder if this sound touches the desktop and makes some noise or other kinds of errors. So we elevated it. And after recorded sound by microphone, we analyze it with autopsy. And this is when we did spatial distribution. This is the speaker itself. And this is from D to 15 centimeter, 30 centimeter, 50, 45 centimeter. And these are angles. And all what we did, including elevated and clearing these surroundings, are always preventing sound reflection, preventing like a sound emitted and touches here and influences our experiment data. And this is our spatial distribution that we have done. And without cone, we can discover that the sound have a train that is diffusing. But after with cone, you can see that this is a counterline graph, and this is very obviously, no matter we use cone or horn, there is a clear concentration. And then, as we know that this is our qualitative theory, that after a speaker emits a sound without cone, it's just traveling in a free space. But after with cone, it will touch the wall of the cone and reflects. So here and here, the sound will be bigger. And we started to compare with horn and horn. And this is we use optics methods to decide if there is a focus or for the cone and horn. We say that there are both waves, so this is just a simulation. Yes. And after we use cone, the simulation of optics have assembly and focus. And after we use horn, it does disperse. So we consider that cone is better than horn on assembly sounds. And our experimental data also supports our opinion. And then we started to discuss the parameters. First is the size of cone. Here we call size is a length. It means that a cone is like acting like this or larger. And we discovered that when we let the cone become larger, the sound becomes larger too. But there is a limit. We consider that this is because when cone is bigger enough, these sounds wouldn't touch the wall, the boundary of the cone anymore, and thus these parts doesn't have any influences. And we have size tendency. This is what we use different materials. When we use different materials, we discover that no matter we have the same condition and different materials, and we discover that they are both same. There are just only a little bit differences, and they act same as the previous graph. And then we have the size of horn, which is the exponential one. Then we change the length of the horn. Just it's like this. The horn is ordinary. It's like this, and we change it like larger. And then we discover that this is our smaller horns, and this is our bigger horns. And we discover that there is a peak at when L equals 15 centimeter. That means larger, the better. And then we decided to do the angle of cone. Here we discovered something. the angle of cone is quite easy, right? And we discovered that in 40 degrees there's a peak there. We say that is because when the CI is too small, the sound reflects very much time and very many times, so the sound is being absorbed by the cone itself. But when the cone is super large, the angle is large, then imagine a very large cone, then the sound emits and it travels and it didn't touches any cone. So there is a peak in the proper angle. And we discovered that in 40 degrees there's a peak. So we did more precisely experience that from 25 degrees to 55 degrees, 5 degrees per each. And previous graph is 10 degrees per each. And we discovered we have the same result that the 40 degree has the largest sound. And then we have the peak angle. Actually, this is when we changed different materials of cone, and we started to calculate the cones, the largest sound in the cone. Like, for example, the previous graph is paper. So in the paper line, we have the same result that in 40 degrees we have the maximum. And in PLA, we have different like 20 degrees. In plastic, we have like 30. So the materials also actually influence the best angle of the cone. And what influence is the hardness of the material. But hard materials is lesser energy absorbed, so we can get peak at lower degrees. And we have the angle of cone. This definition is quite a little bit hard to manage backward. When we after we have the size and the shape of horn, then we can define the angle like this. Just simply connected the point and start and the end, and we call it angle. It's just for us a convenience to do quantitative experiments. And then we discovered that there is no very obvious trends. But there's also a peak at 23 degrees. And same as the previous opinion, when the degree is too big, the sound just travels. When the degree is too small, it reflects too much time. And that we changed. While I claimed before, we use exponential to do horn, so we can change the base, the exponential space of our function, and we discovered that the smaller the better. Imagine that the base is 1, and it's ridiculous, but what you get is just a single rod. Then all of energy will just block in this rod and cause a very large energy density. And we started to do material of a cone, and this time we only use paper and plastic. And we also got the same result that the hard material less energy absorbed. And this is more obviously than the previous one. And now it's a conclusion time. First, how does the acoustic output depends on the shape, size, and material of the cone. We decided that the size there's a limited. The size, the bigger the better, but there's a limited because these parts that when the size is too big, these are useless. And for angle, there's a peak. Angles too big, sounds just travel. Angles too small, reflects too many times, so there's a peak. Materials, hard materials are better, called lesser energy absorbed. And then, also, we got the same conclusion in horn and horn. And then, we consider the cone shape is better. And this is our best cone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Opponent, please ask question.
Hello, I am the opponent of the theory, and I have a few questions for you. The first is, I think the theory you said is about the reflection of the wave, right? Is it right? The reflection?
Pardon? The reflection?
The theory that you said
Yes.
is the reflection central to all the waves. Yeah, but according to the diffraction things, you know diffraction?
Yes.
Yeah, it says that because of your the diameter of your how can I say, the smaller part of your horn is smaller than the velocity of sound. So it makes data like this. And when it touch the and how can I say that?
Sorry, I can't understand her question. Can we use a blackboard?
Sure.
Can you please draw out your question on that?
Okay, what I mean is that I don't think you can draw the lines of the inside the squares. Because it is too complex that you can draw. There are some resonance quantities.
Yeah, I feel like consider it such as like wavefront. Yeah, because it's like when we do geometry optics, yeah, it also because of phases or other things like these complex things, but the result is similar to reality. Yeah, when we do like geometry optics, and so we think that the similar things, because it's also waves, so the similar things can present on acoustics.
But you said theory has only the reflective. Are there the others theory about that I can consider?
Oh, time's up.
Thank you.
Opponent, please take the floor.
Hello, I'm the senior opponent, and I have a problem statement. It says a simple cone-shaped or horn-shaped object can be used to estimate the transfer of the human face to a
remote listener. Investigate how the resulting accounting often depends on the relevant parameters such as the shape, size, and material of the cone. And I have to ask, like, the question says, is this to remote listener? And in your experiment, you only analyze the voice, not to like a remote listener. Will that different when you like 100 meters long? You know what I mean? Yeah, because it's to a remote listener, so I don't think you did that for experiment. Okay, and okay, the second one is, how is the sound different from on the home heads? Oh, the second one is material is hard or of soft or whatever. How to sound? What is the material? What is the sound when it touches the material, and how do you have a theory of the sound when it contacts the material? The third one is the forms and cones different and the same. Okay. Okay. Actually, like I said before, I have some questions about the theory parts, because I don't think the theory is that simple. Yeah. And I want to ask that, why do you choose those materials to be your variables? And when you control the form's angle, won't the big R you mentioned it as setup change? That won't be a simple independent variable. That would be a lot of independent variable. You know what I mean? Okay. And any reference? Do you have any reference about the conclusion of yours?
Do you want to go into discussion now?
Do you want to skip to the next
Okay.
discussion? Okay.
Thank you. All right, please repeat your question. Thank you.
Which one do you want?
Okay. For remote listener, you have an example like 100 meters.
Like, yeah, because this is a remote listener.
Yeah, because actually, I don't think we have the experiment field for us to have a 100-meter large ideal environment that could let us do experiments.
So what do you think about
Remote listeners, yeah.
will that change a lot?
I think, what, manage the backward?
Sure.
What I think is like this. After sound is emitted out of the cone, then the amplifying is inside the cone, or just a little bit outside the cone. This area is when for the cone to amplify the sound. But for remote listeners, these amplify actions are empty. So in remote listening, like here and here, you can use simple theory to think about the sound, the noise between these, which is larger. This is just simple theory. And what I want to discuss is how it amplifies.
So you don't think that will be, some differences between this?
I don't think so.
So the second one is theory. Because you say this distance is much smaller than the velocity of sound waves. So in that here, in this place, you might get a deflection here. So the wave wouldn't be that simple. And when you said you put your thing touch the horn, when it vibrate with the horn, will that?
We'll avoid that.
But you say you touch the horn.
Of course, we're not doing it like a big speaker here and vibrating all things. We're not doing it like this. We're more doing it like a small speaker here.
Oh, so you didn't touch it?
I said touches because this like the speakers like here and this is very vibrating.
But you said touch that one. So all.
So what I mean touches is this is connected but this is no vibration here. We'll avoid all the vibrations so we don't get errors.
Okay, so do you have any models, mathematical models for your results, your axes and
Mathematical, you mean
models?
quantitative
And like
calculations? Actually, yeah. Just as you said, this is not as simple as we thought, and there is also phase problem and other problems. We try to explain quantitative and give it a strict and simple explanation that makes sense, and try to prove that this theory fits the reality. But yeah, it's not that simple. So we can't do very precise quantitative experiments.
okay, so back to the when you change the variables of the forms like the diameter or things, will that change a lot of things?
Yes.
But will that
You mean like?
When I see a lot of your experiment, I see a lot of changes. Not
Like
only
usually like home when this L and becomes like this,
yeah,
and it also changes to R.
yeah.
Another fact is it's impossible for us to change only one parameters of these related parameters.
Then why? How will that affect the result that we think?
How will you mean like when I change L, it also changes R. It also changes R, and how will it affect?
Yeah.
According to our theory, we said that when L is big enough, this part is useless. So it's useless.
Because there's one thing that the sound is traveled by the wave, and that would stick to the material.
What do you mean stick to the material?
When I blow an air tube and it will like stick here.
Yes.
Will that affect that?
No. You mean contact effect, right? Sound is not airflow.
Airflow, but it might be. So about the material you choose.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. A second, please. Okay. Why we choose these three types of material? First of all, like you can't make exponential points by human hand, right? So we use 3D printers, and the materials of our 3D printer is PLA with PLA, which is a kind of plastic. So so we have to compare cone and board, right? So we also make PLA's cone, and we make PLA's board. And then it's plastic, paper and plastic. Then it's just a simple materials that we can find in our daily lives that sometimes you did, like you have to call a remote listener, remind him something, and you might use a paper to roll the cone and just yell it. So I think that this is very fit to our daily life, and maybe paper and plastic. So that is why the reason we use this kind of material.
Oh, and about the upper page.
The upper page.
The sound upper page. Previous.
Yes. That's correct.
Oh, the one you use the like a lot of colors. That one, that
What do you mean a lot of colors?
graphs that has a lot of colors.
What is?
This one.
Oh, thank you.
I see. I think this point are larger than this one.
What?
This are when the sound, you can hear the sound here.
Yes?
Yeah, so this only close like this and open like that. But I mean, this one is slightly shorter than that.
You mean where?
This.
Here? This distance is shorter than here.
Yeah.
Actually, it's
But is it,
you mean this distance at 0 to 0 and the distance from 0 to 0 is 0 to 0? You mean that?
I just quite don't understand what this.
Okay, I'll explain it again. First, this is x, y, z, and x, y surface is just a table, okay? And z is the amplitude of our sound. We are not using decibels, we are using zone. And in a minute, we will explain what is a zone. And for z, it's the amplitude of our sound. And after this is our with cone, this is when we just base our speaker without anything and the spatial distribution that we detected. And this one is with cone, and this one is with horn. In the middle, there is an obvious, clear concentration that improves. And for a zone, and actually it's similar to decibels, but a little bit different. It's more related to energy and the how loud a sound that we hear. Well, it's like when I yell at you at 120 decibels and 130 decibels, you feel like the same.
Okay, so I'm going to ask like, what is more important, the reflection of the times inside the cones or how it is centered?
What do you mean? Special.
Okay. The time is how. What is more important, the time that the reflection hits here, or how it is centered?
The time, these two things, I don't. This is different things. The central, it mainly centers, then it makes our sound bigger. But this kind of collision makes our sound smaller while we have absorbed.
Time's up. Upon please summarize.
Okay, I have discussed some things with about some theory thing, and he said this is for this reflection thing is the quantities things to explain, and I have asked a lot about the variables things, and he said his theory approved that those variables does not change the effect of the sound. And I asked a remote listener thing. He said there isn't a lot of there isn't a lab to do that. So he said, and according to his theory, he thinks the shorter this 40 like this is small.
Time's up. Reviewer.
Question for the reporter. So do you think that the wave shape, the difference of wave shape between human sound and the generated sound will affect the experiment result?
I don't think, because we can actually make human sounds like a wave shape wave shape of human sounds into no
No.
Fourier series.
Okay. Do you consider the acoustic impedance?
Pardon?
The acoustic impedance.
Acoustic
Impedance.
impedance.
Yes. The acoustic pressure divided by the volume velocity.
No.
Okay. Do you think that the directivity is the most important part of it?
Directivity?
Yes. The sound, the direction of the sound. The direction of the sound.
The most important?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So, do you think that the different location of the remote listener will affect the result? That
If the
you put your recorder in a different position, will affect the result of the experiment.
when it becomes further than the
Or
sound
not in the
becomes,
central of the horn.
yes, it reflects. It
So
affects
did you
and
do
not
the experiment?
the spatial distribution.
Okay. So, do you consider the same weight of the horn or the horn?
No, because the sound waves the wavelength is too large, so we don't have to consider it.
Okay. So, okay. So, as your distance definition, do you where the distance is from the speaker or from the bottom of the horn?
Bottom of the horn.
Okay. Please turn to page 19. And what do you think that which properties of the material will affect this result?
I don't know if this is the correct English, but I think it's
Which properties of the
how
materials?
it absorb and like volume molecules.
So, hold on. So, what do you think which properties of the material will affect the result?
Which kind of property?
Yeah, of the materials.
Stiffness.
Okay.
Okay. Reviewer, please sit before. 2 minutes preparation. Time's up. Reviewer, please take the floor.
So, hello everyone. I'm the reviewer from Team Chan Puding Xiaozhuang, and I'm going to review the problem statement analysis. And here's the problem statement. And I think the main focus we should mention that is the optimizing the voice to the remote listener and investigate what parameters will affect. And here's the proposals outline. First, he gives a definition and a theory, and he defined a human voice, and he used the same frequency to do the experiment. And he said that the reflection and concentrated sound may be the reason that they will be optimized. But they didn't talk about the shape of the wave, but they think that it doesn't matter, and they don't have the equation and the real theory. And as for their setup, they use a cone to the speaker. And the experiment, they talk about 3 different parameters, which is the size and different distance and different angles. But they didn't explain why the cone will decrease the sound, and they didn't mention that what properties of the material will affect. And they didn't calculate why is the 40 degrees is the best angle, and they didn't do the error analysis. And so they think that the size will have a limit, and the 2 big angle will absorb the sound, and the small angle will not touch this. And the small angle will absorb the sound, and the big angle will not touch the sound. And the hard material absorb less. And for the opponents online, the experiments use a different shape and angle, and they think that they do merit experiment completely, but they didn't have a real theory and equation. And here's the discussion. They have a long distance discussion that if the listener is very long enough, and so will the sound be heard? Then the fellow said that it doesn't matter because, and I think that if the definition is to the cone, bottom of the cone, then you can do a very small angle and a very long distance. But I don't think that the sound will be transferred, and the acoustic impedance will affect this experiment. And here's the length and the radius might affect, but the report said that it's small enough to ignore. But I think that they should do the experiment. And they didn't, and they choose their materials that can be found in the daily life. But I think that they should find the best materials to do the experiment. And here's the point list. They have no comparison between the experiment and the theory, and they didn't give the equation of the theory. And they didn't explain why the cone is better than the point, and they didn't have a real explanation. And they didn't calculate why is the 40 degrees the best angle. And they didn't measure the hardness or the different properties of the materials that will affect. And they didn't consider the acoustic impedance that will be affected by the absorbance and the angle of the materials or the cone.
Okay, concluding remarks.
Here is a concluding remarks of the reporter. First, for remote distance, it's too hard to do, and we don't think that for very, very far distance and a little bit far distance really matters. So we didn't do it. And we present a qualitative theory. The exact problem isn't that simple for us to analyze and explain, but it didn't seem that our theory is wrong. And for L, when L reaches a maximum length, the remaining length of the cone or horn won't matter. And there is no single parameters can be changed, so we have to change multiple parameters. And centering a sound makes a sound louder, while reflection times makes a sound smaller, while the materials absorb the energy. And wherever the sound comes from, we didn't think that affects the results, whether it's human or computer, where we have a tool called Fourier series. All of the sounds can be combined by sine waves in different kinds of frequencies. So we didn't think that it affects the result. And then, the place of a microphone, we did a spatial distribution and discovered that for no cone or no horn, comparing to no cone or no horn, then after there's a cone and there's a horn, we have more concentrated sound and makes the sound louder. And we consider that what affects the absorption, what affects us absorb is the absorption and the volume modulus of the materials itself, while the opponent's thing is the stiffness. And we consider horn is barely a horn is due to optic simulation and real experiment data, while in optics cone has a focus. And that's our remarks. Thank you.
Now, any questions from the jury? Please.
Okay, because in the first problem it specifically said that about a remote listener. If there's no experiment limitation by your equipment or whatever thing, how will you design experiment that use the word remote? I mean, if you design the experiment again, and because it said remote, then how far will you have the listener to the speaker?
Assuming that it's a lecture hall that is like in your university.
No, there is nothing there.
I know.
In this problem, it doesn't matter about the hall or whatever.
Yeah, I'm thinking about in what kind of situation in reality will people choose to use this kind of horn or cone. So I would like to about
To the point, how far will your speaker to the listener?
50 meters inside 50 meters.
Inside.
Yes. Well, I would
Depends on what?
While think of it as a field, and you want to use a horn to yell out at 100 meters people there.
Just by feeling, right?
Because I can't. This is very hard.
It's a physics problem, so you must have physics parameters set. Okay, this distance is considered to be far enough.
Okay, then.
Okay, so opponent.
I think that shouldn't happen.
Opponent first. You don't want to answer?
I will, but can I consider it?
No.
No?
By the order.
Okay,
Opponent first.
I think it's about like more than 15 meters.
By what consideration you think 50 meters is enough?
I didn't.
So you just guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, reviewer.
I think that we should we would find the location on the same axis that the speaker is transfer the thing and the sound, and we should find the zero and the less intensity to the
It
people
has
to
nothing to do without
hear. And
it has nothing to do
we should
with
find the
intensity.
maximum distance that the listener can hear the
Oh, okay.
sound.
How
And-
far
and
should the listener and the
This will
speaker
be
be?
affect to the speaker
By what physics parameters?
office parameters.
Yes.
I think that in his theory that maybe
Not by his theory, but
Yeah.
by
Okay,
your
so
thinking.
in the
So you have no clue.
yes, but I think that we can find
Okay.
the maximum
Okay,
distance.
that's fine.
Can I change my answer again?
No.
Any yes?
So you mentioned that you use optical software for simulation.
Yes.
But the property of acoustic wave and the optical wave are very different. For example, velocity and wavelength. How do you use parameters to simulate?
Well, I can always treat it as waveforms and waves, the direction that waves goes on. Because they are both, I know that their properties are quite different, but now I'm solving geometry optics. So it's only just the line is just what the waves goes on, copy.
Time goes up. Do you use the same frequency or you keep the same wavelengths of the acoustic?
No, I didn't do any physics of optics in this simulation.
Or just geometry optics?
Pure geometry.
Any questions? Okay, please, now 5 minutes grading time. Yeah, thank you.
最远的理论距离是首先分贝进入到被渠道的系统，
哦，
被渠道的部分，
对，
它是出彩，你的能量会积聚到的时对，这样就是你的可以算出来。
Okay, now please show the grade for reporter. It's 58757. Now the grade for the opponent. 37656. Now the grade for reviewer. 68768. Now complete this stage. So 15-minute break. Okay, opponent, please challenge the opponent.
好吗？都被你这叫换主位。那个黄色字是什么意思啊？几万额外不是只到5个吗？没有，一起解。那个条件解，一起顺位一样，前面解。完全超合理，我觉得。
Hands up.
Challenge power number 6. Very close.
Okay, Roman 6. Please write your names.
然后我笔记本没有，稍微吗？可以吧？那个笔记就是读数嘛，对吧？对，对，就是你有然后这一页便利贴给我，我当大便利贴当给我表，我要看便利贴给我。你们来，我在是桥的。
当然，它是我不知道你有没有。
好，可以。
还是你要跟我坐一起？没有，因为这样他们
我可以直接在中间。
好的，那上台好，我不要。 watch the video again. From the video, we can observe more subtle scenes through a red paper. We discover that the system will not only revolution but also rotation. This is a picture of its motion. Theory. Before we talk about Hurricane let's look at precession because Hurricane is similar to precession and understand the relationship between the torque and angular momentum. Let's look at the revolution first. When it's revolution, it will have a torque. What's going to provide the torque is the weight of the torque. So we cannot the torque equal to the mass times the gravity. Acceleration percent. And we use the rotation. When it's rotation, it will have an angular momentum. The original angular momentum A the torque, it will become a new angular momentum. The original and the new is same. And now we talk about the relationship between the angular momentum. We can know the tau is equal to delta L divided the over delta T and delta L equal to tau plus delta T and tau equal to mgr and delta L equal to delta phi plus L and L plus delta phi equal to the tau plus delta T and L plus delta phi equal to mgr plus delta T and we can know delta phi equal to mgr plus delta T. Owner L equal to mgr plus delta T or I omega delta phi plus 1 owner delta T equal to mgr plus delta T owner I omega plus 1 owner delta T. So we can now the omega equal to delta phi plus delta T equal to mgr owner I omega. And now we talk about the difference of Hurricane and precession. Is that the very center of the Hurricane bolt isn't changed, but the very center of precession do uniform circular motion. And it is the first analyzed from a reference. We can know the system moves permanently under the influence of gravity and rolling friction. It's balanced because its angular momentum didn't change. The reason is the weight of the bolt provide the torque, and the torque will make the angular momentum change. But the angular momentum is same before and after, so it can balance. From this picture, you can also notice the potential because the test is the same. And from a reference, we can also know the best angle is cosine theta equal to 2.5. Conclusion. The hurricane boat moves currently under the influence of gravity and moving friction. 2. The best angle between the ground and the boat is 2 fifths. This is my reference. The end. Thanks for listening.
Okay, opponent please ask questions.
Okay, and here's the first question. From the observation, you can see that when you close the ball is moving. It is moving through the screen. And do you find this observation? And can we turn to the observation, please? Okay, I'll go to the next question. How do you blow the ball? How do you blow the ball? Straw. So blow by human body.
Yes.
So how can we be sure that the force is the same? The force from the air. Because every time you blow it, you may create a different force.
I first observed and disciplined, and I didn't do
Okay,
any
that's good.
experiments.
And you say the ball is spinning. Well, how do you know that the ball is not spinning and going like this? Can you prove it? Yes or no? That's a good question. Because you only calculate the spin friction, but you didn't calculate the kinetic friction if it is moving like this.
Because it is pull rolling.
How can we prove that it's pull rolling? Do you calculate it? Yes or no? That's it or no?
I can prove.
Okay, you can prove.
Yes.
Okay, then how do you measure the angle? The angle of the two balls? Yeah. I mean, how do you measure it? You by your eyes, or do you have the application to measure it?
It is from reference.
What reference? You do the experiment?
No.
You didn't do the experiment?
Yes.
Oh, okay, you didn't do the experiment. Okay, thank you.
Time's up.
你就跟他讲说是那个水仪器什么东西，就叫他他回答说对，他转成是贯穿下面那一条直线，不是那两颗的共同直线。所以那转头怎么说？早餐系统的部分是没有秀出来数据。刚刚有D1 is the best accurate. It's the best acceleration or the best velocity. 就是加速效果比较好，速度比较最后终端速度比较好。它没有解释那个最强角度的意义。
Thumbs up? Opponent, please state your thoughts.
Okay, hello my dear colleagues and professors. I'm from Team TYPT. My name is Guo Chengwei. Today I will be posting the 6 question American bolts. Okay, and this is problem statement. There are going to be 2 bolts joined together, and it will be spun first by hand and then blown by a tube. And when you blow it by a tube, it can reach a very high frequency. And in this question, we have to explain and investigate this phenomenon. Okay, and this is my structure of solving the problem. First, we need to know why spinning with the hand and blowing with the tube can reach a very high frequency. Because in this section, we're supposed to explain and also investigate this phenomenon. So I think this is the most important part of the experiment. And also, we need to find a limitation to the phenomenon. And then after we have known the reason, we're going to analyze the motion of the hurricane bolts. Is the hurricane bolt rotating, or is it spinning, or is it happening both in the same time? So after this, we're going to investigate how other parameters is going to affect the motion. One is the most important one. Maybe it is the mass of the steel ball. Maybe it is the density of the steel ball or size of the steel ball. And how to blow it? What is the diameter of the tube? And with how much pressure or how much air velocity you blow it? And this is the outline of the reporter. And I think it has a very good calculation. And his theory is that it is the torque the gravity gives. But in his theory, he didn't consider friction. And then force may not be applied in a regulated area because when the ball is spinning, his giving force area is different because it is spinning. So the area in the period of time will be different. And then he didn't explain any parameters. And for his setup, she attached 2 bolts together. And then he didn't explain how she do the experiment. It's like how she blow it or how she and from which angle or from this how many distance she blow it. And then in the experiment, she found out what the best angle is. But then the air ball is not stable because she is blowing with a human body. And then you can see from the observation, the ball is moving. So the distance you blow it will be different. So the force will also be different. And then she did not have any data. And from the conclusion, she said that cosine theta will equals to 2 divided by 5. But in her theory, she didn't determine the air drag. And I think air drag is a very important factor that should be discovered. And then she didn't have so many parameters. And then here is her point. I think she had really a good observation. But weak points, she didn't conclude all the conditions in the equation, such as the air drag or the friction. And then the air force is not stable because she is blowing. And then she didn't relegate the angle and the distance because she is wearing the ball is moving, so the difference will be different. And she didn't apply the air force to a certain point. And because the ball is rolling, so the point will be different, and the area will also be different. So the force on the tube will also be different. And she didn't mention how rolling fraction will affect in her topic. And then here's my discussion. We should have investigated all the conditions, maybe the air drag or the friction. And then she didn't analyze the right thing. And then the experiment, her air source is not stable. And she didn't relegate the direction and then the air source. And she didn't relegate the angle and the force she blew. And then the results, did her result match the theory? And she didn't tell us. And she didn't tell us that I can do the theory. Okay.
Discussion, please.
Introduction. Okay, for the introduction, you can see that the introduction is asking us to explain and then investigate this phenomenon. So why can you let the steel balls reach a very high frequency when you blow it?
At first, you spin them by hand,
Yes.
and if rise off.
Yeah, and why? And why can you reach a very high frequency? Because this is the most important part in the experiment. Why can it reach a high frequency when you blow it? Why? You have to explain this one. Oh, I think you should do it next time because this is what the introduction has to do. And what is your high frequency? What's the limitation? Is it like turning 60 rotation in 1 second or how many? How to define it?
I define this in 1 second and 8 floor.
8?
Yes.
If you're saying is the limitation is 8, then you have to show it in your data. And then because the ball is rotating, so the area of the ball is different. It's like here, the area is like this, but when you rotate it to here, the area will be different. So how do you make sure that you blow it to the same area? Because that will be different force.
I didn't do experiment, but I just want to
Okay. If you didn't do the experiment, then how will you be sure that your theory is correct? How can you be sure? From the reference? Then how can you be sure that the reference is correct? From where do you get the references? So you are telling us that the information from the internet is correct, right? All the information from the internet. Is it just a question, yes or no? No, then why can't you use the reference from the internet too?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then you said that with the high velocity of the spinning speed, you'll have a higher angle, right?
Yes.
Then what is the two relationship? Does it have a proportional or does it have a proportional relation or is it a linear equation? What is the relationship between the angle and the spinning velocity? Because you're saying that it will increase, but how will it increase? Is it like this or is it like this? Or another two?
You say
Yes.
and it's this. I think if it is balanced, it will like this.
Is it? Or to have a diagram?
No, I will do this.
And please use it. By how? By equation or by experiment? Okay, I'll make the next question. And then the question of the introduction is like, why would it reach a high frequency? But what you are doing is that you're talking about its value and how the syllable is lived. So I think this is the point you should improve next time. That you should do what the experiment tells us to do. And then here's another question. You are saying that the ball is rotating like this, right? And go to your observation. Yes. You can see that your axis is wrong because the axis of rotating is between the middle ball, between the steel balls. But what you show on your theory here, this is your axis, but the reality that axis is this one. So is this a mistake? If not, please explain why this is not a mistake. See, this is the axis you prove, but it is rotating like this one. The axis is supposed to be here from the observation.
Can you say again what's your question?
It's like the axis you put, your rotation axis you put on this one. But you can see your observation. The rotation axis is actually this one.
Because it's contact ground like this.
But this a mistake because we're drawing the rotation here. Is it right or wrong? Just give me a brief answer. I'll need a brief answer. Okay, I'll get to the next question. And you say you have the friction in your equation, but how would the friction matter? Would it matter a lot or would it matter a little? A lot? So you think that the reason won't balance. So when you take the tube up, the ball will start to decrease in speed, right? Because there's no force. So what do you think is the biggest reason that will stop it from moving, stop it from rotating? What's the biggest reason? Is it the friction? Weight. Okay, but I think it's because of the air drag. Because you know the rotating friction will have different value with the different material, and still both and this is less material. The two of them have a very close material, so the rolling friction should be very small. These two are very hard. So I think the biggest reason that it will stop it from movement is because of the air drag. And another thing, you only calculate the rolling friction. But how do you know that it is only rolling but not moving? Like moving like without rotating. Because if you only observe it from your bare eyes, it won't be accurate.
I can but I guess it's only from.
Okay, so you have to prove it next time. And can you go to your part one of the equation? Or equation. Sorry, what is the FC? Is it the friction?
No, it's not.
Okay, that's another force. And then can you go to your another equation? The one with the omega. Okay, what is your omega? Is it the spinning omega or the rotating omega? And are these two the same or are these two different?
I think it is same.
The same?
Because
Why do you think it's the same?
the path is the same. When it's rotation, it has will like this. And it will the path will like this. Only for revolution will like this.
Can you expand it with your equation? Because this is kind of hard to understand from this picture.
I don't have equation.
Okay, and I have another question for you. Why do you think that we should spin the ball first, then blow it? Why can we not just blow it and let it spin? Okay, that's enough. And you're moving it with your hand, right? The force and the direction you shift it might be different. So the ball will be like going to other places. And will that affect your experiment? Will it?
You say it will.
Yes, because every time you force it, it is in
Ah.
a different direction.
Yes.
Thumbs up.
Okay, I'll be summarizing his discussion. And first, I think she has to put the right axis because she put a wrong axis. If this is the ball, she put the axis here. And I think that will be an error to the whole equation. And then she has to find the correct equation between the lifting angle and the velocity because she didn't say anything about it. And why is the rolling and spinning the same? Why is the omega the same? And I think that should also be explained. And then she only considered the rolling friction. And then will it be a connected friction if the ball is moving, like when she used the hand to spin it? The ball is going to move in a different position.
Question of the viewer.
Okay, my first question goes out to both of you. What are your assumptions for the theory? Okay, so let's say you're doing a problem, like what would you assume that is constant throughout
I think
throughout
there
the
is
problem?
different conditions that the theory should improve, such as the air drag. And I think air drag is an important factor that will affect the experiment because I think air drag is the main reason why the hurricane balls will stop from moving.
So air drag.
Yeah, air drag.
Is that it?
Is it?
Okay. What about you?
It is.
What would you assume is constant throughout this experiment?
I think
It's just a simple. Actually, never mind. It's okay. We can go on to the next question. To both of you as well. Do you think the motion is stable from like right after you start spinning? Yes. Do you think the motion is stable right after you start spinning it? Yes. Yes or no? Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
got
think
it.
the motion will be stable if we didn't force anything on it. It will just turn almost to stable. But in the experiment, you have to blow with the tube.
Yes.
And when you blow with the tube, you will first to different area.
I'm sorry, but I wasn't asking that. I was asking when we just started spinning it, would it be stable? Yes or no?
No, if you didn't blow it.
Okay, thank you.
Stable.
Third question. What would happen? Okay, so for the opponent actually handling. So what would you recommend the reporter to blow on like the ball? Like with what force? Like how do you measure the force? How like which position? Yes.
I think I would want to put it to the middle part because
Is there
when
a
a
reason?
ball is rotating, this ball is on the top, but when it rotates to here, the other ball will go to the bottom part. So if you didn't throw it in the middle, these two areas will be different, and that will have a different force, and it will spin different.
So you would think that blowing the right in the middle would make the area.
Not in the middle, but the left hand side, but the middle of the left hand side.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Also, last question is for the reporter.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the opponent. If it were you just doing this experiment, how would you do it? How would you conduct it?
Oh, I will connect the two to maybe a machine, so that I can produce a very stable wave velocity, and then I will measure its velocity. And then for the experiment, I will limit the distance to blow the ball and a certain point and a certain angle, so that the
Time's
force
up.
can be stable.
up, reveal please say before.
Honorable judges, fellow competitors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tian and I represent Team Miracle, and I'm going to be reviewing this match about number 6 problem, hurricane balls. And the problem goes as follows. The two spitballs can be joined together, spun at an incredibly high frequency after blowing on it. And you start the spinning by blowing on by hand. And we think that the crucial point for this problem would be you need to stop the spinning by hand, and then we have to keep on blowing it through a tube, and it will be spun at a very high frequency. Okay, so this is the reporter's outline. First of all, she tells us how she made the hurricane balls, so the setup and the observation with videos that show the center of mass. That shows the center of mass moving, and the theory. The theta changing up and moving up and down. And the theory about the precession and the gravity towards conclusion is that cosine theta, when the cosine theta equals 2 fifths, it'll have, when cosine theta is is 2 fifths, it will be best, and the gravity and rotor resistance is what causes the spinning. Now, Roy wasn't causing, she had a citation, nice theory, and she did have citation, but the cause is that the theory is not adequate, and she didn't do any experiments with the unclear phenomenon. Now, the discussion between the opponent and the reporter can be separated into a couple sections. Now, the first section is a theory of friction, where the opponent asked, well, she drew the wrong axis on the graph, and the reporter did not explain anything. The opponent also asked about the friction effect and its slowing down, and the reporter answered with that the friction effect makes the whole phenomenon balance, and the slowing down is because of the rolling resistance. And the opponent made a special emphasis on air drag, and we believe that the reporter should have understood the theory a bit better. Okay. The second discussion is the opponent asked how the wind was applied to the ball, and the reporter responded by she did it by blowing with her mouth, and doesn't know how it reaches the high frequency. And we think that the reporter should have explained what rotating objects drag and torque back blowing with is. And my question was about the theory assumptions. Now, the opponent responded with that the air drag is very important, and the reporter didn't really respond. And the second question was it stable from the start? And while the reporter says yes, the opponent does state no. And we believe that we agree with the opponent that it was not stable because of the center of mass. Now the reviewers, my question again about where the wind should be blown. The opponent stated that it should be blown somewhere in the middle from the left, so that the area is the same throughout its spinning process. Well, and the opponent said that he would also control wind velocity, and we think that we should measure, whoever's doing the experiment should measure the effect of wind like the equivalent to work with damping. Really important. They also discussed the angle measuring method, but because the reporter didn't do any reports, they didn't do any experiments, so that didn't really do anything. The highest frequency that the reporter said was 8 hertz, and the missing voice was they didn't say about starting by hand, and any suggestions. And that's it. Thank you.
Remarks?
I'm so sorry I didn't do any experiment. I just observed and try to explain the phenomenon. Okay. And the question from the opponent. Yeah, how do I blow the straw? I say I use my mouth. It is not correct way to blow it, but I just want to observe and explain. I didn't want to find why is the force I blow can affect the box. The force from the human body range we have an answer to check, but I didn't do its experiment. If I didn't do an experiment, how to know what the theory is correct? From the reference, it had a data, and it had data on it, so I think it is correct. And how do I know it's only moving but not moving? We will think about this, and we will think about it. And what is the
Okay, time's up. Thank you. Now, questions from the jury? I have one question for all three teams. First, to the reporter, why do you think the ball lifts up?
I haven't think about it, but I think it is because we spin very fast and lift into the force and then it flies up.
Same question to the opponent.
Because I think this is the reason of the angular momentum. Because it has to be a larger angle when it rotates faster. Yeah.
And same question to
Can I make a short statement?
it has to be him.
Okay. Well, we believe it's the sorry. We believe it was like the rolling friction counteracting the force. Yes.
Different accents from
Yes.
both people. Any more questions? Okay, if no more questions, then thank you all.
Thank you.
Now the score for the reporter. Four, 4, 3, 3, 5. Next score for the opponent. 7, 8, 8, 9, 9. And for the reviewer, 8, 8, 9, 8, 7. Thank you. And now finally, because this concludes this session, I would like to ask if there are any comments or suggestions from the judges.
Maybe I speak in Chinese more clear for you to understand what I want to say. 当你们看到这些题目的时候呢，先把题目读清楚， 然后呢，了解这个题目真正要问你们的是什么东西，然后知道它的物理的数据到底会落在哪个范围，再开始做实验。不要捡到篮子就是菜，想到什么就开始做。把题目弄清楚，会减少你们很多的无谓的力气在不必要的事情上面。这种竞赛，它的题目其实都有定义的很清楚。就是它字句里面哪些是重点的字，把它弄清楚，然后你应该在哪个范围做。那比如说我们就以最后这个实验来讲好了。你的手能出多少力？这个球的质量是多少？你大概就可以知道那个频率是多少，那个球的半径是多少，质量是多少，你就可以知道那个频率差不多应该是多少。你就知道你做实验的时候应该在哪个范围做，而不是讲 high frequency 随便猜或随便想一个数字，这是不对的。里面它都是有根有据的，所以做实验的时候，这样都可以减少你们在无谓的范围里面找你们的实验结果。这我要讲。
Okay, thank you. Now, a little advice from me. I think presentation skills need to improve a little bit, but I mean, great effort from all of you. If you want to improve presentation or discussion, I mean, for the presentation wise, you can, for example, watch Discovery Channel or just try to get used to the flow of like explaining something. Okay, it's not really a question. Maybe only half of it is because of English, but half of it is because how you present, how you explain like parameters and a given situation. And also, feel free to use the blackboard. You don't really ask the judges. Just use it, draw. That makes the discussion much clearer. And also, it's about understanding each other's questions and letting each other understand your own questions. And that makes the whole the competition more worthwhile and more, well, just better and higher score for everyone. Okay. Now, yes, please.
我会讲一点，我用中文。那刚才这个施明峰老师他就是讲有关可能是 reporter 跟你们之前准备的这些东西。那我想点的就是说是有关这种辩论赛的过程中，那有关这个 opponent 跟这个 reviewer， 就是常常遇到的问题就是只是在问 question 而已。那如果说想要拿高分的话，最好是说就是你为什么要问这个 question， 或是那你自己的看法是什么？那这个 question 为什么很重要？那所以说拿高分，我会觉得说除了 summary 就是对手的表现或是怎么样，那自己的 contribution， 你为什么要问这个 question 这个为什么很重要？它带来的提示是什么 ？hint 是什么？那所以这只是就是未来还有几场比赛给各位做参考。
Okay, so that concludes this session. And if you have any questions for the judges, you can come to ask them. Thank you. Well done.